Was that a record for you at that point?
It was a record for a lot of people, here and abroad.
Although the 1975 smash film Jaws revolutionized the movie industry, the public was understandably wary of swimming for quite some time afterward. Some people don't know this, but the movie didn't include all of the sequences that were shot, possibly due to their intensity, or for a more straightforward reason, these sequences were removed for a variety of reasons. We all thought we understood the film, but these cut sequences reveal a whole new side. An intriguing tidbit regarding the making of Jaws concerns a sequence that was originally prolonged but did not make it into the final edit. This is a reference to the notorious beach attack, in which the young Alex Kintner was one of the unfortunate victims of the shark. Assuming we're all familiar with the version, the action is about to get fairly intense. Individuals start shouting, water splashes everywhere, and then, suddenly, he disappears. You'll never forget that gruesome moment. This scene was apparently cut from a lengthier version before the film was released, which is an intriguing twist. There seems to be a few additional seconds in the extended edit, which serves to heighten the suspense and terror even further. The moment of violence hits more strongly because there is more buildup before it. Additional shots of the blood-churned ocean, more terrified beachgoers, and yelling parents round out the aftermath. There was more blood, more chaos, and perhaps even more emotional damage. At the end of the day, Steven Spielberg chose to tone it down, and I have to say, that was arguably one of his best creative choices. Famously, he stated that he intended suspense, not violence, to steal the show in Jaws. All through the movie, that mindset is on display. His creation was much more horrifying because he refrained from using graphic violence and instead relied on our imaginations. The classic adage goes something like, "Less is more," and it certainly works in Jaws. The choice to subtly hint at horror rather than outright depict it is a major factor in the film's success and longevity. Nonetheless, trying to put oneself in that expanded version's shoes is an intriguing exercise. Was there any way that could have been more gut-wrenching? Would the tone have shifted from tense thriller to pure terror if it had been there? We'll never know for sure, but seeing behind the scenes gives us more respect for Spielberg's cinematic intuition. What makes it beyond the editing room isn't always the most intriguing part. Disturbing as the film is as it is, one of the most unsettling deleted scenes from Jaws depicts a severed limb sunk to the ocean floor. Yes, it is as disturbing as it sounds. While the film's final edit already had enough grisly scenes to make your stomach turn, this shot took the terror to a whole new level during the assault on the unfortunate man in the estuary. According to reports, the image was rather horrific, showing a single dead limb slowly descending into the dark water while softly rotating. That picture makes me feel uneasy. It's not only graphic violence for shock effect, it evokes a deep-seated dread of the hidden violent forces at work in the world. Spielberg likely decided to withdraw it because of how eerie it seems. Reportedly, it caused a great deal of distress among test audiences. You can tell it was intense if the Jaws test viewers, who were already immersed in a film about a gigantic killer shark, found this scene too much to handle. Spielberg felt it went too far because he is constantly aware of the delicate balance between terror and spectacle. Scaring people cleverly was the aim, not grossing them out. Part of the reason Jaws is so powerful after all these years is because of that distinction. I mean, it's likely the correct choice. An ingenious aspect of Jaws is the way it manipulates the unseen. The terror is less physical and more mental. Famously, Spielberg let our imaginations fill in the gaps by limiting the shark's screen time, mostly due to mechanical concerns, but it worked in his favor. Adding a leg dangling in the water might have intensified the scene, but it may have also shocked the audience to their core and removed them from the tension. I wish I could have seen the deleted scene, though, for horror aficionados and die-hard fans. The director's willingness to push things to their limits before pulling them back in is revealed in it. It also demonstrates the amount of planning that goes into making a terrifying film, from generating realistic horror scenes to making sure the images stay with you long after the credits have rolled. Even though the limb was deleted from the final version of Jaws, its existence contributes to the film's mythology. This serves as further evidence that the content we witnessed on TV was meticulously, if not entirely, crafted. The master of cinematic suspense, Steven Spielberg, understood precisely how much to reveal and how much to keep hidden in the editing room, resulting in the blockbuster hit and cinematic classic that is Jaws. And further scene that frequently arises in conversations among Jaws fans is a subtle, often overlooked exchange between Chief Brody and his wife, Ellen. There won't be any dramatic music or life-or-death stakes in this major set-piece sequence. You won't have to worry about a shark, a beach scare, or a high-stakes boat pursuit. In reality, it's simply the two of them having a quiet, introspective chat in the middle of the night. Not because they're over the top, but because they're authentic. Those moments may sometimes be the most powerful. Here, Brody lets out a bit of the stress that has been building up inside him, the type that is hard to shake even after a while. The weight of duty for protecting his community, particularly when he lacks knowledge on how to do it, is evidently taking a toll on him as the head of police in a town that is abruptly divided by a spate of deadly shark attacks. He supposedly lets us in on his inner turmoil in this scenario. His speech betrays his exhaustion and the tightness in his physique. Amidst all the mayhem, Ellen is there, gently encouraging and providing him with a sense of stability. Perhaps its omission from the final edit is due to its lack of drama and sparkle. To shorten the picture and maintain the audience's attention on the growing threat, Spielberg chose to cut it. It makes sense when viewed through the lens of a tale. Thrillers like Jaws rely heavily on building momentum. If Spielberg wanted to achieve his goal of a taut, tension-filled experience that never lets up, then every minute that doesn't advance the plot will feel like a slowness. Having a peaceful moment like this, nevertheless, may have given Brody's character even more nuanced emotions. In this moment, we would have seen more of the personal toll it's having on him, but we already cheer for him because he's a decent man trying to do the right thing in a difficult circumstance. It would have served as a reminder that the man's fear, exhaustion, and struggle to maintain composure lie under the stern resolve and the badge. He would have been considerably more approachable if he had done it. One of the things that Jaws accomplishes so brilliantly is that it manages to show both the terrifying shark and the incredibly human reactions of the individuals involved. Fans are left to wonder what else may have been explored in a chopped sequence like this, which delves deeper into Brody's psyche. Would the film's pace have been somewhat slower? Possibly yes. However, would it have heightened our interest in his fate to any degree? Most likely. It's an intriguing what-if scenario in the world of cinema. There is a trade-off between emotion and tempo, between characters and action, in every scene that gets cut. Even though Spielberg made the correct decisions, Jaws is a classic. It's interesting to consider what may have been. An understated moment may reveal as much about a character as a grandiose one at times. Perhaps we might have gotten a better look at the man behind the badge and the human toll of protecting Amity Island in Brody and Ellen's late-night conversation. Next, there's the intriguing and strangely placed deleted scene of Quint in a corner store. Though it was omitted from the final version of Jaws, this what could have been scene is sure to be remembered by fans who have sifted through the film's extras or heard rumors about it throughout the years. A gathering of locals listen to Quint, who is already famous for being a larger-than-life figure, go on and on about sharks while inebriated. It's odd, it's loud, and Robert Shaw's raw energy is on full display. Its raw, unrestrained authenticity is what really sets the setting apart. Here, Quint, who was previously introduced as an enigmatic and eccentric man, lets his guard down. As he slurs, insults, and screams about the ocean and sharks, you can't help but be both entertained and little scared. Even in this raw, chaotic scene, Robert Shaw's captivating presence holds the audience's attention. Imagine a man whose history haunts him, and the only way he knows how to deal is to shout into a bottle, attempting to escape the emptiness. Despite how enjoyable it is, Spielberg decided to delete the scene, and it's easy to understand why. This sequence, however entertaining, somewhat slows down the film's tempo and the suspense that builds throughout. It is mired in an odd tonal zone that is more comical and chaotic than suspenseful, and it fails to advance the story. It might be jarring to take a detour into inebriated storytelling just as a dangerous marine search is getting underway. Nonetheless, this sequence does provide something unique for moviegoers, particularly Quint aficionados. It gives a character that was already full of life even more vibrancy. We had an inkling he was little insane, but this scenario really brings out his charm and lunacy. It offers a glimpse into the townspeople's perception of him, possibly a local hero, but also somewhat of a wild card. Plus, it provides us with even more of Quint's distinctively unexpected energy. Jaws, in its finished form, is taut, thrilling, and paced almost perfectly. However, reminiscing about these lapses in memory, such as Quint's rage at the store, can be enjoyable, even if not all of a character's traits and characteristics make it onto screen. These examples show how much work goes into creating a character. Those who enjoy Jaws will find that these minor tidbits about the making of the film enhance their enjoyment of the original. I bet that the very first thing that comes to mind when someone mentions Jaws is a massive shark fin slashing through the water, accompanied by the slow, pulsating dun-dun, dun-dun score. Even if you haven't watched the film, you've probably felt its influence because of how legendary it is. The real question, though, is whether or not Jaws is still a worthwhile film in the year 2025, or if it is simply a cliched, excessively violent thriller that has received too much praise over the years. Now, let's break that out. Let's get the big picture out of the way first. Yeah, as said before, Jaws does have some horrific moments. There are some gory moments because the video is about a gigantic shark attacking swimmers near a little New England village. There is blood in the water, people being assaulted, and you can see them frightened and writhing in helplessness. The catch, though, is that Jaws isn't as bloody as it seems. When contrasted with contemporary horror pictures, it really manages to be quite subdued. Spielberg had to depend on suggestion rather than overt spectacle due to the mechanical shark breaking down many times during production, which is a somewhat realistic explanation for the restraint. Furthermore, that proved to be an epiphany. The psychological suspense increases due of the shark's restricted vision. The impending attacks are more horrifying because you sense the threat before you see it. Blood and bites aren't the only things involved. The true terror originates from the mystery, from the suspense of knowing that something sinister is hiding just below the surface. That's the type of horror that still works today, because it does not depend on gore or CGI, but rather on appealing to a more fundamental human terror. However, Jaws is more than just a monster flick featuring a large fish. The plot and people are what make it stand the test of time. The film follows Amity Island's police head Martin Brody, as the community prepares for the summer season of tourists. In the aftermath of a young woman's shark attack, Brody calls for a beach closure, but the mayor of the town is more concerned with the potential economic consequences than with ensuring the public's safety. It feels like that conflict between doing the right thing and doing what's profitable is more important than ever. The protagonist Brody stands out. He's not some ripped action hero. just an average person who's afraid of water, but is trying to keep his town safe. Next, there's oceanographer Matt Hooper, played by Richard Dreyfuss, who injects some logic and science into the mix. And then there's Quint, the intriguing and insane shark hunter with a salty, weathered exterior. Their relationship, particularly when they're all stranded on a boat together in pursuit of the shark, is the film's source of emotion and comedy. A shark attack isn't even the finest sequence in the movie. It's a peaceful time when the three guys bond over their concerns, swap experiences, and compare scars. Narratives like Quint's speech on the real-life naval catastrophe of the USS Indianapolis are memorable. It's unfiltered, unsettling, and entirely human. The truth is that Jaws could take a while to get going if you're accustomed to current horror or thrillers that crank up the tension right from the start. The first act focuses on creating suspense. Lots of broad vistas of the water that don't feel exciting, along with brief peeks of the shark and indications of danger. However, its effectiveness is precisely due to its gradual buildup. Spielberg allows the tension to build. An impending event is imminent. Time is of the essence. Being patient is worthwhile. You can tell it was worth it when the activity picks up speed. An actual threat is perceived. And now that you've gotten to know the people, you genuinely care about their plight. Not only is it a monster flick, but it's also a tale of survival, an examination of terror, and an illuminating glimpse into the human condition when tested. Jaws succeeds visually in setting the mood. You wouldn't think you're in a movie set in this coastal town. Water, shadows, and distance are all used by the cinematographer to keep you on the edge of your seat. The music, consisting of only 2 notes, has likely been responsible for more summer swim-related disasters than any horror film in history. It's basic, yet it works like magic. It still has the power to make you feel uneasy. In that case, should you watch it? To put it succinctly, yes. In Jaws, the shark is merely one of many characters. The picture is a masterpiece of suspense, a character drama with outstanding acting, and a watershed moment in cinematic history. It is sometimes said to have been the first summer blockbuster. Surprisingly, it has stood the test of time, having been filmed over half a century ago. Even while the shark may appear rather rubbery in 4K, I mean, really? That practically makes it more endearing. The storyline in Jaws is what really makes you scared, not the special effects. It's in the way it ratchets up the suspense, evokes empathy, and speaks to a universal human emotion. The terror of the unknown. Jaws isn't only a violent, antiquated shark film, then. Still, you should go on this intelligent, exciting, and unexpectedly moving trip. When Jaws first opened in theaters in the summer of 1975, no one could have foreseen the film's eventual magnitude. Based on the novel by Peter Benchley and directed by a teenage Steven Spielberg, Jaws did more than terrify audiences away from water. It also revolutionized summer filmmaking in Hollywood. Jaws was a huge financial success. Keep in mind that this was in the 1970s, thus the global gross was roughly $476.5 million, with an estimated $260 million in the US alone. It surpassed all previous films in terms of box office earnings until 1977's Star Wars became the highest-grossing picture of all time. After adjusting for inflation, the film Jaws would have earned over $2 billion, placing it in the same financial league as Avatar and Avengers. Endgame. It's fascinating enough that movies came out in the summer, but Jaws was instrumental in turning summer into the season for blockbusters. Studios would wait until the fall or winter to release their prestige films. However, Spielberg and Universal Pictures turned the tables on each other. They unleashed Jaws on hundreds of screens simultaneously as part of a huge advertising effort that included several television commercials, which were unusual at the time. A wide release, the current norm for major motion pictures, was pioneered by this picture. The revenue was not, of course, only generated by ticket sales. The home video and re-releases of Jaws also contributed to the film's financial success. From the innumerable pop culture allusions and parodies to the distinctive two-note shark theme, it became a full-blown cultural phenomenon. The picture was so successful that it even catapulted Spielberg into stardom. Jaws didn't only become a financial success, it revolutionized the film business. Impressive considering the film's infamously troubled production, which included challenges with broken shark models and filming delays. Ultimately, though, everything fell into place in a way that viewers adored, and they continued to return for more. The first thing that needs to be said is that the original Jaws is a cinematic classic. It revolutionized the concept of a summer blockbuster and was directed by a young Steven Spielberg. What makes Jaws stand out, though, is not just its enormous financial success, but also the expert way it creates tension. The mechanical shark, Bruce, kept malfunctioning, so the shark isn't staring you down the nose the whole time. However, that restriction ended up being a godsend. Spielberg put more faith in suggestion than spectacle, relying on the audience's imagination to fill in the gaps created by creepy music and inventive camera angles. This makes the terror seem very real and intimate. However, terrifying moments are only part of it. Jaws is well grounded by its human aspects, because he is terrified of water, unfamiliar with the island, and completely out of his comfort zone. Chief Brody is a hesitant hero. Quint, the weathered shark hunter, lends depth and gloom, while Hooper brings a touch of humor and intelligence. Their last-act encounters on the boat are among the most memorable in cinematic history. They are intense, touching, and unexpectedly humorous. With its spine-tingling delivery and indelible content, Quint's eerie USS Indianapolis speech is the showstopper. The original Jaws was flawless in every way. Very seldom does a film's acting, directing, score, and editing all mesh to provide an experience that surpasses the sum of its components. Jaws 2 had high expectations, yet it managed to pull off a respectable second-place finish. 3 years after the first film's release, Roy Scheider reprises his role as Chief Brody, who must persuade the residents of Amity Island once again that the sea is a threat. The community still refuses to pay attention, even if it's a great white shark. The film's focus on a group of stranded teenagers, a brilliant choice that increases the stakes and generates new dynamics, is one example of how it shakes up the traditional premise. Undoubtedly, there are occasions that are effective. There is an effort to maintain the original's tone of character drama and suspenseful attack sequences. It feels more like a thriller than a meticulously constructed work of suspense, without Spielberg directing and without the same degree of subtlety. It also loses some of the slow-burn suspense that was so compelling in the original, since it focuses more on action, particularly towards the conclusion. Regardless, the sequel to Jaws is not terrible. It does decently in the realm of sequels, particularly horror sequels. It doesn't add anything to the mythos, but it also doesn't destroy it, which is better than the subsequent flicks. Here, we get into some strange ground. Wildly diverging from the original, Jaws 3D takes place in a marine park in Florida, essentially a stand-in for SeaWorld, instead than on Amity Island. Mike Brody, played by Dennis Quaid, is the son of Chief Brody, who has grown up and is now an engineer at the theme park. He is on the job when, you got it, a massive great white shark gets into the subterranean tunnels and attractions. And if it seems a bit absurd, that's just because it is. The picture is more of a campy curiosity than a decent sequel, especially when you consider the 3D visuals from the early 80s and how they haven't held up. The most striking difference between the original and Jaws 3D is the film's tone. This one has all the makings of a cable monster flick, in contrast to the realistic and suspenseful Jaws. The plot is weak, the acting is wooden, and the shark appears to be more of a CGI prop than a real danger. The 3D effects are very distracting. For example, the shark's fangs shooting at the camera and the blood oozing out in strange places are both extremely exaggerated and hilariously bad. On the other hand, if you're feeling saucy, it has an odd charm. In a "this is so bad it's entertaining" sort of sense. It's enjoyable without being frightening or serious. But compared to the first two, it's a big leap in quality and storyline. The one that everyone attempts to put out of their mind. 1987. Jaws. The Revenge Jaws. The Revenge, the fourth and last installment in the series, is arguably the most notorious of them all. Everything goes really crazy in this film. The protagonist, a widow named Ellen Brody, starts to suspect that a shark is plotting revenge by attacking her family. It appears the shark has a grudge against Ellen, and even a psychic link to her. Furthermore, it travels to the Bahamas. Yep, sharks move south to locate them. It doesn't make any sense at all, even when seen through the lens of the liberal guidelines established by the preceding films. No one, not even Michael Caine, yes, he is in this, can save the disaster that is the acting. The VFX are some of the worst in the series. The shark is so unrealistic that it's funny, and the last death sequence is famous for its absurd slow motion and howling shark. Subtlety, character-driven tension, and real terror, all of which were terrific in the original, are entirely absent. Melodrama, awkward exposition, and a script that appears to have been composed on the spur of the moment are what we get instead. Almost nothing good can be said about this. No one can sit through it, not even those who enjoy terrible films. It's the type of foolish movie that makes the original feel like a parody. It's one of the worst sequels in Hollywood history. It's not simply a lousy Jaws movie. By this point, it was obvious that the franchise was in its last stages, and The Revenge effectively ended it. The Jaws film series is unusual in that each subsequent installment pales in comparison to the groundbreaking original. Although they attempted, the sequels failed to recreate the magic of the first, and so failed to sustain the franchise. Characters lacked depth, prose lacked precision, and suspense gave way to spectacle. It's the Hollywood way of attempting to make more money off of a blockbuster without realizing what made it successful initially. Still, it's entertaining in a way to see the fall play out. Different films highlight various sides of what occurs when a series keeps running past its expiration date. For example, Jaws 2 is surprisingly decent, Jaws 3D is a wacky ride, and Jaws, The Revenge is a train wreck. It doesn't matter how terrible the sequels were, they couldn't top the original. It's the first one, and we'll keep coming back to it every time we hear that two-note motif and start scanning the water a bit more carefully. Year after year, summer after summer. Do you also enjoy the film or the other films in the franchise? Leave a comment with your thoughts, and please subscribe to the channel.